Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. To see the scale of this, the size of this crowd is really something. It's heartbreaking to know that so many people have been impacted by substance use, but it's also beautiful to see us all come out here in the name of love, because as our team is always telling everyone, grief truly is love. So we're gonna get started. Just to give everybody a heads up, we'll be doing this in English and Spanish, so just stick around with us. Bienvenidos, gracias a todos por estar acá. Ver el tamaño de este grupo es bien emocional. Saber que todos estamos acá porque estamos afligidos por esto es bien doloroso. Pero saber que todos estamos acá por el amor que sigue por estas personas que han fallecido es bien inspirante. It is my great honor to introduce Mayor Kenny, who is here with us to formally open this long-awaited Overdose Memorial Garden. Es un gran honor poder introducir al alcalde Kenny, quien está acá con nosotros para inaugurar este jardín de conmemoración por la sobredosis. Gracias.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you all for being here today. We are here today for a somber moment, the unveiling of this memorial garden on International Overdose Awareness Day. This day exists to raise awareness of overdose, reduce the stigma of drug-related deaths, and acknowledge the deep grief felt by families and friends remembering loved ones. And this day spreads the message that the tragedy of overdose death is preventable. The overdose crisis has created immeasurable loss all over our country. Today we come together as Philadelphians to address the impact this crisis has had on our city. Philadelphia has lost over 1,000 individuals to drug-related causes each year since 2017. That's 1,000 brothers, sisters, daughters, sons, mothers, fathers, wives, husbands, friends, and colleagues. This garden is intended to spread awareness about this crisis and to demonstrate the love that persists for those who have tragically been lost. Through the virtual memorial site, the pop-up garden, visitors can learn about the individuals that lost their lives to this crisis. Their loved ones continue to fight by demonstrating that this can happen to anybody. Nobody is immune to a tragedy like this, and only by speaking up can we begin to squash the stigma so more can be done to prevent future tragedies. Today we are joined by special guests who have lost their loved ones to substance use and dedicated themselves to supporting individuals in families impacted by this crisis. They share their heartbreak with us in hopes that other families won't have to experience the same pain, a truly selfless act. We are grateful for their courage, compassion, and leadership. And on behalf of the city, I want to extend our most heartfelt condolences for the passing of their loved ones. This deeply moving project is led by the Health Department's Division of Substance Use Prevention and Harm Reduction, Department of Behavioral Health and Disability Services, the Managing Director's Opioid Response Unit, and the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity. I want to thank all of these city teams working together to make harm reduction and treatment options available, and to support families and communities as we take on this crisis together. I also want to give a special thank you to One Day at a Time for staffing the garden. This memorial is staffed by individuals with lived experience, as well as compassion and concern for those currently struggling. If you are struggling, please know you are not alone, and that recovery is possible. In Philadelphia, DBH IDS is here to help. You can call 888-545-2600. That's 888-545-2600 for support with substance misuse or any behavior or mental health challenge. And if you're in crisis and have an immediate need, you can now dial or text 988. This garden is beautiful, and we want to thank Think Green for the design and construction of the space, and the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society for making this possible. We'd also like to thank the Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy for connecting us with today's incredibly talented musicians, the Apregio Jazz Ensemble. Before our next speaker, I ask that you all join me in a moment of silence to remember the people that we have lost. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Laura Vargas, SUPHR's Super Bereavement Care Program Manager, to recognize today's special guest and provide remarks to our Hispanic community. Laura, thank you for all your efforts to make this possible. Your work embodies our city's compassion and hope, and we really, truly appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Gracias, alcalde. As I mentioned, I'll be switching over to Spanish to give his remarks, and then I'll switch back over to English to introduce our special guest today. Estamos aquí en un día sombrío. Estamos inaugurando este jardín de conmemoración de sobredosis en el Mes Internacional de Reconocer las Sobredosis. Este día existe para aumentar la conciencia de las sobredosis, reducir el estigma de las muertes por sobredosis y reconocer el duelo sentido por las familias y amistades que han perdido seres queridos. Este día también da el mensaje que la tragedia de las muertes por sobredosis es prevenible. La crisis de la sobredosis ha causado tremendo duelo por todo el país, pero en este día estamos acá como filadelfianos para juntarnos y reconocer el impacto de esta crisis en nuestra ciudad. Filadelfia ha perdido más de 1,000 personas cada año desde el 2017 debido a drogas. Esos son 1,000 hermanos, hermanas, esposos, esposas, hijos, hijas, mamás, papás, amistades, colegas. Este jardín está hecho para dar a conocer que esta crisis está pasando y para demostrar el amor que continúa por los seres perdidos. Entre este jardín temporal y el memorial virtual, visitantes pueden aprender de las personas que han perdido sus vidas por esta crisis. Sus seres queridos siguen la lucha, demostrando que esto le puede pasar a cualquiera persona, a cualquiera familia. Nadie está libre de una tragedia como esta y solamente en hablar es que podemos empezar a disminuir el estigma para que podamos hacer más para prevenir más tragedias. Hoy estamos acompañados por unos invitados especiales que han perdido sus seres queridos a drogas y se han dedicado a apoyar a personas y familias afligidas por esta crisis. Ellos compartirán su dolor con nosotros en esperanza de que otras familias no tendrán que pasar el mismo dolor. Un acto de pura corazón. Estamos bien agradecidos por el coraje y la compasión de ellos. Y de parte de la ciudad, queremos extender nuestro más sentido pésame por la muerte de sus seres queridos. Este proyecto es dirigido por la División del Uso de Sustancias y Reducción de Daños, el Departamento de la Salud Conductal y Servicios de Discapacidades Intelectuales, la Unidad de la Respuesta de los Opioides de la Oficina del Director Gerente y la Oficina del Empoderamiento de la Comunidad. Quiero agradecer a todos los equipos de la ciudad por trabajar juntos para hacer accesibles programas de reducción de daños y opciones para el tratamiento de la adicción. Quiero agradecer a One Day at a Time, ODA, por la dotación de personal para manejar el jardín. Este jardín está manejado por personas que tienen experiencia vivida y también compasión y cariño por personas que están sufriendo en el momento. Si estás sufriendo, por favor ten en mente que no estás solo y que la recuperación es posible. Si está en Filadelfia, DBH está acá para ayudar. Puede llamar al 888-545-2600 para apoyo por el uso de las sustancias o cualquier asunto sobre la salud mental o de comportamiento. Si está en crisis y tiene una necesidad inmediata, puede llamar o textear al 988. Finalmente, mirando este jardín hermoso, queremos agradecer a Think Green por el diseño y construcción de este jardín y a Pennsylvania Horticultural Society por hacerlo posible. También queremos agradecer a la Oficina de Arte, Cultura y la Economía Creativa por conectarnos hoy con los músicos tan especiales, el Arpeggio Jazz Ensemble. Y ahora voy a introducir a nuestros invitados especiales. So now I'll go ahead and introduce some of our special guests. This garden was inspired by Susan Austerman. Susan? There she is. There she is. Susan is a fierce advocate who has dedicated her life since the tragic passing of her son Tyler to supporting other individuals and families impacted by this crisis. Susan has remained connected with our bereavement care team, Philly Heals, and has taken on a multitude of projects aimed at preventing future loss, including pitching the idea of creating an overdose memorial garden. The team took Susan's recommendation and set out to create a space for hope, healing, and empowerment for bereaved survivors and a space for engagement, prevention, and harm reduction. For those who often find themselves asking, "What can I do?" check in with Susan. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience in this work and loves welcoming new advocates. Susan, thank you so much. I'll have you just come here. Next, I'd like to introduce Ramon Cruz, a fellow city employee from DBH IDS. Ramon has dedicated every day of his recovery to advocating for individuals who use substances. Ramon comes to us today not only as a person in long-term recovery or as a person working in this field, but most importantly as a father. A father who recently suffered the unimaginable tragedy that many here today share, losing a child to substance use. Ramon, thank you so much for joining us.
First, I'm honored to be chosen to speak. As Laura said, my name is Ramon Cruz. I am a person in long-term recovery. I was born and raised in Philadelphia's Kensington community. Growing up in the neighborhood was tough. Not many opportunities. My parents worked hard and were very disciplined. They did everything possible to provide me with all a kid could ask for, and more. My father's dream was for one of his sons to play baseball in the major leagues. I almost gave him that dream, but due to an injury and some bad decisions, the dream fell short. Unfortunately, right after that, trajectory of my life changed. I started to hang out with the wrong people. This caused me to make some bad decisions, which led me to do over 25 plus years of in and out of prison. I continue to be led in the path regardless of my parents' wishes. This was the start of my addictive behavior, the instant gratification of selling and using drugs, and how I prospered monetarily, but using without no regards. From the age of 19 to 30, I sold drugs and believed that I was living life to the fullest. I say I fathered children because I've never been a dad. In 1996, while incarcerated, waiting for a trial, I received the news my father passed. I felt as if my heart shattered into pieces, and due to the loss of my father, I decided to use opiates in prison. This led me to a full-blown substance use disorder after being discharged. In the next 19 years, I found myself in some very dark places, living under bridges and anywhere I could lay my head as I continued to go in and out of prison. In February 2015, my life of recovery started. I chose another way to live. My life is coming into full circle today. It was not easy. Recovery is not easy. If it was, everyone would do it. My pathway to recovery was found through a spiritual awakening. Today, I work for the city of Philadelphia, trying to help people attain a new way of life. After so many years of being a problem in the community, I am a part of trying to bring solutions. I am so grateful to my higher power for giving me the strength and opportunity to let people know that recovery is possible. It takes hard work and dedicating your life to surround yourself with the right people, places, and things. Always knowing that recovery is a process, not an event. I am not the person I used to be, and that is because I believe in myself today. Due to the hard work that needs to be done, I stay clean one day at a time. People ask me how I work in the community that I used to sell and use drugs. I tell them it's God's purpose in my life to serve. I cannot do it by myself. I utilize all the supports I have while asking my higher power for strength. That is what recovery is about. Because I have chosen the path of recovery, I have the chance to be a dad, a son, and a grandfather. So please know that recovery is possible. Unfortunately, 2 months ago on 6/28/2022, we lost a beautiful soul in an overdose. My family's life will never be the same. Bringing awareness to overdose is very important. Because that beautiful soul I'm talking about is Christopher Ramon Cruz. He was not only our son, he was a father, brother, cousin, nephew, and grandson. Not many people in this life were as selfless and so giving, but Chris was just that. Having a beautiful soul, even in the midst of struggling through co-occurring challenges, is rare. It's easy to assume that Chris was just another person that chose to be an addict, but he was more than that to our family. To many people, he was a ray of sunshine and helped people through his laughter and through this amazing smile that could light up a room. Chris was very intelligent, but also loved with all his heart, even to those who hurt him, and always willing to see the best in others. He loved and protected his family to no limits. Chris had many faults and was not perfect, but he tried very hard to get on the right path to be there for his son, who loved him immensely. Chris was an avid sports fan, but his love for football was no other. Unfortunately, he was a Ravens fan and not an Eagles fan. This love for sports carried into his son. Mason enjoys playing baseball and football, but football was his way of carrying his father's legacy. This year, Chris was looking forward to cheering his son from the sidelines at his football games, something that was impeded previously due to his prison time. Our family struggled with behavioral health challenges for many years. Chris battled co-occurring challenges for approximately 12 years of his life. But even with these challenges, Chris was able to be there for our family. Yes, there were a lot of interventions, rehabs, and endless nights that the family would be out searching for him. But these moments did not define him as the person or means he was loved any less. These moments we experienced were merely acts of someone who was battling something we as a family were not able to understand. Addiction stole 12 years of this family, and yet somehow through these years, Chris was still a ray of sunshine. Through these challenges, we planned more family dinners, game nights, and most memorably, our days together watching the Eagles games. We intentionally built these times, always worrying in the next time would be the last time. So it was imperative to spend as much time as possible. Chris was a beautiful, misunderstood soul, but so much more deserving than how his life ended. We will continue as a family to carry the legacy of Christopher Cruz by bringing awareness and destigmatizing the disease of addiction. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Ramon. Next, I would like to introduce Kimberly Robinson Presley, a woman who fights for her and her family's life every step of the way. Her life has not been easy, yet she continues moving forward with her recovery. She is here to share with you about her journey through recovery, the loss of her daughter Kamira to addiction, and the hope and love that has gotten her through it all. Kim, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Kamira, say her name. Say it loud and then say it again. Kamira, Kamira. One thing that I have noticed in my time without her is that people don't say her name enough anymore. They say things like your daughter, their mom, the drug addict, or don't refer to her at all. And I don't like that. Now she is referred to as a number, as part of a statistic. But I will never forget who she was to me. She wasn't just my daughter, but she was also my best friend. She had the best sense of humor, and no one could make me laugh like she did. Losing her was like losing a part of myself. And I wouldn't wish this pain on any mom, child, or family member. I am here today for Kamira because I don't want her to be forgotten. My hope in speaking with you is that by telling our story, you will see how just easily it could happen to you. My prayer is that me being here will touch at least one person and help them believe that their story can be different. To tell you Kamira's story, I have to start with mine. I started out in a foster home, a good one that became my foundation. But upon that foundation, I still chose chaos, maybe due to the chaos I felt inside. I started using marijuana young, and by high school, I was doing cocaine, which eventually led me to doing cocaine and heroin at 22 years of age. For years, my mother would ask me if I was using, and though I thought the world of my mom, I would just brush her off, not interested in help. By 26, I became heavily addicted to smoking crack and heroin, and I didn't see a way out. I had 2 kids at the time, but I didn't see a way out, and I didn't want one. One day, my son Jamar wrote me a letter that said, "Are you doing drugs? Because if you are, it's affecting me and my sister." So of course I was mad. I cursed him out, but that was just because he was right. And he was only 10. But it broke my heart, but I still couldn't face my addiction. That year, my mother ended up in the hospital and she was not doing well. When I visited her, she asked me one more time, "Are you on something? Are you on something? Because if you are, you should get help. I just want you to get yourself together for the kids." I didn't say anything. I was just looking at her. I wanted so desperately to tell my mom that I was using, but I was scared and ashamed. I just couldn't do it. Well, a few days later, my mom died, and I never got the chance to show her the mom that I could be. 2 days after her funeral, I went and found help, and that's where my recovery journey began. I went to meetings and eventually ended up choosing to do a year in rehab. That was all my choice. That's where I learned the phrase, life on life's terms. Being clean meant that I could embrace and witness life with clarity and experience it the way it was meant to be. I got out of rehab and I immediately worked on getting Jomar and Kamira back. I did everything that DHS asked me to do. like get a job and housing, and I got them back within 6 months. That's when the real life together began. It wasn't easy to stay clean. I was in a physically and emotionally abusive relationship for 10 years, but I always kept my active addiction in the back of my mind as a motivation. I would think to myself, it's bad, but think about how much worse it would be if I used. I could not afford to find a new rock bottom. The last time I took the children to the shelter for safety, I met my husband, Michael, at McDonald's right there. That was 15, 16 years ago. It was love at first sight. He was so generous and kind that a week after we started dating, he took Kamira to enroll her in school and bought all her new school clothes, everything she needed. Now, don't get me wrong, it was an uphill battle. Kamira was 13 at the time. She did not ask for a new dad. But as she got older and had her own kids, she saw how Michael's presence had changed our lives for the better and how he fiercely loved not just me, but my children as well. As you already know, Kamira was not able to get past her addiction to live life on life's terms as I had. Her drug use started with weed, which eventually moved to Xannies. When my family left the city for Gettysburg, 21-year-old Kamira started to use perks. But it took until she was 23 for us to realize that Kamira had a serious problem with drugs. She was slacking as a parent for her two children, Chimera and Kamaya, in a similar way to what I was with her, running the streets. But when she would struggle to pay her $50 Section 8 housing rent, that's when I knew the drugs was a problem. She kept wanting to go back to Philly, and eventually she did. I was so angry that she was picking the streets over her children, over her family. When she finally came back to us, she did time and went to rehab and everything. When she was doing well, she always had a good job and a nice place to live. That was part of why her relapses were so devastating, because she always got so close. I was so mad at her. I wouldn't let her come to see her kids whenever she wanted to, because she had to know what she was doing to us. She would get her hopes up and then relapse, and it was exhausting every time. It was so hurtful, especially as a mom who had been down the same road and made similar choices once. There were times that she would say, "Mom, you don't understand," when she knew full well that I did, but really I couldn't understand it. She lived through her mother's addiction. Why would you want to take your kids down the same path? In the summer before she died, we decided that she would take me on a day in the life of Kamira. As we were planning, she took out a bag of heroin and snorted it in front of me. And that's when I knew she was really gone. My daughter Kamira respected me, because there's a difference between my daughter Kamira and then the addict Mira. That the daughter Kamira would do anything for me. She loved her family, she respected everyone. But the addict Mira is stepped in. So when she took that bag out and snorted in front of me, I knew she was gone. My daughter Kamira respected me way too much to even use in front of me like that. In my sadness and shame, we took the bus to Kensington together. I hated the idea of people staring at her thinking she was nobody. And then I hated the idea of her doing this by herself without me to protect her from those judgmental looks. It's the same way I feel now, I guess. Afraid of people seeing her as nothing more than an addict. We walked around Kensington for 3 hours, and my heart broke just seeing how well she fit in, and just how easily, with one bad decision, I could be there with the other mothers my age. I thank God that I stopped when I did. It was not just a way for me to support and understand my daughter, but also served as a powerful reminder to me about the fragility of my recovery. It was bad enough for me to have followed my biological mother's footsteps. But to see the continuing pattern of Kimberly was devastating and painful. When she was 4, Kimberly said, "Mom, I want to be just like you when I grow up." And I would say, "Don't be like me, be better than me." I always wanted more for Kimberly, but I saw that there was nothing I could do except pray and love her with everything I had, even from a distance at times. The last few months of her life, she was clean and sober and taking care of her kids, doing the right thing. Maybe this time, we thought. But while she left my house clean that day, her addiction was already talking to her. The addict mirror had taken over. Walked out the door and took my daughter, Kimberly, away forever. Now I'm raising her 3 children, Kymir, Kamaya, and Kair. It can be overwhelming at times, and it's certainly not easy. I would give anything to have her here, taking care of her children, and just being here. But I raised them to know who their mother is, who Kimberly was. I get to see the parts of her live on in them, and that makes it all worth still living life on life's terms. And I just also wanted to say, I hope that somebody or anybody heard me, my story and my daughter's story. I don't want anybody to go through this. No matter how hard it is, I have progressed today, but it's never an easy day. I don't want nobody to go through this, so there is hope. And one day, y'all will see a Kimberly's house. There will be a recovery house for women and children, and it will be named Kimberly's house. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you again to all who are here, and thank you to all who made this possible. I want to take a moment to thank my team, Caitlin, Shawanda, Cadence, Susanna, all of them located over there, for all of their work programming the incredible events that are scheduled for this coming month. We may be a small team of 5, but we certainly are mighty. When I began my role in a much smaller capacity a little over 3 years ago, I never imagined having a team, let alone one made up of such brilliant and compassionate individuals. Another very special person who made this possible but isn't here today is Bev Woods. I'm quite sure that we would not be here today if it weren't for Bev and all her support and guidance every step of the way. I also want to thank our internal partners, some of whom Mayor Kenny already named, but also folks like Dominique, Elvis, Carla, Christina, who have always made themselves available for this and been incredibly supportive. I also wanted to thank AR2 and PAD for being out here. So AR2 is the Alternative Response Unit. They are paramedics. They have a team, a multidisciplinary team that go out to the scene of overdoses, and PAD is the Police-Assisted Diversion Program. I want to give another shout out to the garden engagement staff who are in red vests all around. We've spent the past week getting to know each other, and I couldn't be more excited to have them representing this garden. I know there's a lot of city employees here today, and you all know how difficult it is to move a contract through the city, but ODOT leadership was so patient with us and delivered beyond the level we could have imagined in the shortest time crunch possible. I also want to thank Green again for working so hard to make this beautiful garden. Their team was out here in 90+ degree weather each and every day, working incredibly hard to make this, so thank you. And finally, but most importantly, I want to thank our clients. Our team has grown out of the community that we've built and continue growing. You've opened up to us and shared with us during your most difficult days. The lessons that we've learned from each and every one of you are invaluable, and you have inspired us more than you could imagine. The beauty of your love for the individuals that you've lost and the desire to keep pushing forward and including them in everything that you do is what keeps us going. Ya que está abierto el jardín, todo el mes de septiembre van a haber eventos para empoderar, educar y apoyar e inspirar a nuestra comunidad. Los invitamos a que vengan durante este mes y que les avise a otros de que esto existe. Para aprender más de los eventos, recoge un calendario de nuestro equipo. Y de nuevo, muchas gracias a todos que están acá y gracias a todos por hacerlo posible. After we open the garden today, the entire month of September will feature activities and events at this space that aim to empower, educate, support, and inspire the community. We encourage you to return throughout the month and to let others know about this space. Make sure to pick up a program or a calendar from our garden engagement staff or go to www.tinyurl.com/odgardendetails. And our virtual memorial site is www.substanceusefilly.com/memorial. So we're gonna do a ribbon cutting now, and afterwards we invite everybody to come through, tag a flower. You can grab the bamboo tags from our garden engagement staff. There's at both tables under the purple tents. You can also decorate a memorial stone and you can hang out. We'll all be around for the next couple of hours, so if anyone is in need of bereavement support, please check in with any of us because that's what we're here for. But again, thank you all so much for being here.
It's a little low.
You want to just count it?